Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something most people will never say out loud. Men don't just catch feelings by accident. Emotional attachment isn't random. It doesn't happen just because of looks, chemistry, or even time. It happens when something deeper gets triggered. When a man sees a future he actually wants to fight for. And unless these 7 things show up, he won't open his heart no matter how much attention he's getting. Stay with me, because once you understand this, you'll never see men the same way again. And emotional safety is not about being overly sensitive or coddled. It's about being allowed to feel without judgment. Most people misunderstand this. They think men don't need it, or worse, don't want it. The truth is, men rarely get spaces in life where emotions are welcome. From early on, they're taught to toughen up, to carry pressure without complaint, to perform under scrutiny. They grow up believing that showing vulnerability might cost them respect, so they keep it locked away, buried under ambition, humor, or silence. But when they meet someone who gives them permission to stop performing, something powerful begins. They start to associate presence with peace. Not excitement, not lust, but real peace, the kind that lets a guard down. That's when the emotional attachment process truly starts. And a man won't bond just because someone listens. It's how they listen. It's not about jumping in to fix him, offer solutions, or prove understanding. It's about being able to sit with discomfort without trying to change the energy. It's letting him talk at his own pace, in his own rhythm, without filling in the blanks. It's in those pauses, those slow moments, that trust grows. When someone doesn't need to dominate the moment, it creates space for honesty. He'll start saying things even he hasn't said to himself out loud before. Emotional SAF. ET happens when he realizes he's not being auditioned, he's not being measured, analyzed, or subtly redirected. He's simply being allowed to exist, flaws and all, and still be welcome. And this kind of safety isn't loud or flashy, it's subtle and incredibly rare. Most people in a man's life expect him to lead, solve, protect, and provide. Those roles are meaningful but exhausting when they're constant. When someone comes along and doesn't add more pressure, it's like a breath of air he didn't know he needed. Emotional attachment is born in that breath. In that silence between roles and expectations, he gets to touch the version of himself that exists beyond performance. And that version of himself is desperate for connection. Real, raw, unfiltered connection. The one he rarely admits he wants, but secretly craves. Once he feels he's not being watched, only seen, he begins to lean in. Not because he has to, but because now he wants to. And every man has unspoken fears and hidden insecurities, no matter how confident he looks on the outside. Success, status, even popularity don't remove the quiet questions that live in his mind. Am I enough? What if I fail? What if someone sees I'm not as in control as I pretend to be? These thoughts don't get voiced unless the environment feels incredibly safe. So he tests, not consciously, but through small moments. Sharing a past mistake, admitting a shortcoming, expressing doubt. And how those moments are handled matters more than most people think. If met with shame, interruption, or advice too soon, he'll retreat. But if met with curiosity and calm presence, a door opens. One he rarely opens twice, so it better be real the first time. And emotional safety isn't about walking on eggshells. It's about walking on solid ground. It gives a man the foundation to stop editing himself. In a world full of filters and expectations, authenticity becomes a luxury. But when he starts to feel accepted in that authentic space, his whole demeanor changes. He becomes softer, more playful, more present, not because he's changed, but because the walls are no longer needed. Vulnerability isn't a performance or a tactic. It's what happens when a man no longer fears the consequences of being known. He stops protecting, starts sharing, he stops avoiding, starts revealing. That shift is where emotional connection is born, not in romance, but in reality. And no one teaches men how to navigate emotional landscapes. They're taught how to win, how to chase, how to build. But connection, that part gets ignored or pushed aside. So when it starts happening naturally, it can feel unfamiliar, even scary, but the body always knows. It relaxes before the mind understands what's happening. The tension eases. The language changes. He starts using words he's never used or hasn't used in a long time. And it's not because someone demanded it. It's because he finally feels like he won't be punished for doing so. He doesn't feel alone anymore, and that's everything. And attachment isn't a decision. It's a response. When a man attaches emotionally, it's rarely because he planned to. It's because he noticed something different, something safe, something consistent. He started to feel like he didn't need to wear armor in every conversation, that he could exhale, speak freely, and not be dissected or corrected. And every time that safety was confirmed, not with grand gestures, but with quiet consistency, the bond deepened. It's the moments when someone stays kind, even when he's not at his best, when they don't turn cold or distant after seeing his mess, when presence remains, even when perfection fades. That's what tells him, you're safe here. And for most men, emotional attachment isn't about dependency, so it's about freedom. The freedom to bring the full self into a space and still be valued. And once that's felt, he will protect that space with everything he has. That's why the most emotionally attached men are often the most committed, the most generous, the most emotionally invested. Not because they were coaxed into it, but because they've experienced something rare, a moment where their soul was welcomed, not just their strengths. And once a man tastes that kind of connection, transactional relationships lose their appeal. He starts craving depth, not surface, substance, not spark, meaning not just momentum. And this is why men often fall hard and fast when emotional safety is present. It's not just about being understood. It's about feeling respected in his vulnerability. Most people rush to be impressive, but what he remembers is who made him feel real, who allowed space for silence without suspicion, who didn't treat his fears as burdens, but as parts of him worth loving. That feeling doesn't fade. It lingers, attaches, roots itself deep, because it's not common, because it's not easy, because emotional safety is not a given. It's earned over time through presence, through patience, and through peace. And when it's found, he won't let it go lightly. And that's why emotional safety isn't just something he wants. It's something he needs. Even if he can't name it, even if he denies it, deep down, it's what separates connection from companionship. It's what transforms a moment into a memory and a relationship into a home. Because love without emotional safety is fragile, all spark and no structure. But love built on emotional safety becomes unshakable. It becomes the place he returns to, the space he trusts, the feeling he chases. And once he finds it, it changes how he shows up in every part of his life. Not just in love, but in eyes, in everything. Because a man who feels emotionally safe becomes a man who gives emotionally without fear. And there's a quiet longing in every man to be seen. Not for the image he projects, but for the person he really is. He may show confidence, skill, or charisma on the outside, but beneath that is someone hoping what's within is enough. Not enough to impress, not enough to attract, but enough to be valued without the mask. When someone sees beyond the performance, past the polish, and into the intention behind his actions, that's when something changes. That's when admiration starts to feel real, not because of what he does, but because of why he does it. Recognition without expectation creates a different kind of connection. That's the foundation of emotional attachment. And being admired isn't about being put on a pedestal. It's about knowing that the values he lives by are noticed, not just the results he produces. Strength means nothing if no one sees the struggle it took to build it. Integrity goes unseen if people only focus on outcomes. A man wants to feel that his decisions, his sacrifices, his quiet discipline are acknowledged, that someone notices the way he tries, even when no one is watching. He doesn't need applause. But when someone simply recognizes the intention behind the effort, it sticks with him. It lingers. It creates an imprint. That feeling of being understood at that level, that's where emotional connection is born. And for most men, admiration is not about ego, it's about meaning. Life is filled with pressure to perform, to produce, to be someone others expect. But performance without appreciation feels empty. So when someone looks at him and doesn't just see his job title, his bank account, or his reputation, but sees his drive, his consistency, his resilience, he starts to soften. It's not the kind of softness that makes him weak. It's the kind that makes him open. Suddenly he starts showing more, sharing more, not because he's trying to impress, but because he is invited to bring more of himself to the table. And validation is a tricky word, but at its core it means I see you and I respect what I see. Every man wants that, not just when he wins, but when he's in the middle of the climb, not just when he's in control, but when he's holding on with one hand and still showing up. The world rarely gives men credit for invisible battles, the ones that never make headlines. But those are the ones that shape character. When someone notices that character, it builds trust. He doesn't feel like he has to keep performing to be worthy. He feels seen for who he is, not just what he does. That's when emotional attachment deepens. And men grow in environments where they feel appreciated. When someone values not just the outcome, but the heart behind the effort, it reinforces identity. He starts to believe that who he is, as is, carries weight. He doesn't have to overcompensate. He doesn't have to constantly prove himself. And in that space, he becomes more generous, more protective, more emotionally invested. Because now it's not about earning love, it's about growing within it. And admiration isn't conditional. It doesn't disappear when he stumbles or falls short. It stays rooted in who he is, and that makes all the difference. And most men won't ask to be admired. They'll test whether they are. Through small gestures, quiet risks, subtle vulnerability, they'll offer pieces of themselves and watch what's done with them. If those pieces are met with curiosity, not comparison, with respect, not ridicule, something opens up. Admiration in those moments builds a bridge. He doesn't feel alone in his efforts anymore. He feels partnered, even if no words are exchanged. And over time, that feeling becomes addictive, not in a needy way, but in a grounded, stabilizing way. It makes him want to show up more, be more, give more, all because. See, he knows it matters to someone who gets it. And there's a big difference between someone who is admired for their appearance or success and someone admired for their soul. One feels good, the other feels unforgettable. Men get attention all the time, but attention fades fast. Admiration lasts. It's the difference between being wanted and being valued. Being wanted lights a spark. Being valued builds a fire. And when a man starts to feel like his presence adds something meaningful, he forms emotional ties. He starts investing from the heart, not just from habit. Because now the connection isn't built on attraction, it's built on alignment. And admiration also plays a huge role in how safe a man feels to be vulnerable. When he knows that his fears won't be used against him, when he knows that even his flaws don't cancel his worth, he relaxes. That doesn't mean he stops trying. It means he starts trying from a place of wholeness, not lack. He's no longer trying to earn value. He's trying to grow into it. That's a powerful shift. And it only happens when admiration is real, grounded, and consistent. A man will attach deeply to the space that gives him that freedom. The freedom to try, to fail, and to still be respected through it all. And the irony is, the more admired a man feels for his heart, the more he wants to give it. He starts doing the things people dream about, opening up emotionally, staying consistent, showing leadership, offering support, not because he's trying to be impressive, but because he feels safe being expressive. Admiration fuels expression, and that expression creates momentum in the connection. He's no longer holding back, he's leaning in, investing time, energy, thought, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. That purpose grows stronger the more he feels recognized, not for perfection, but for presence. And at the end of the day, every man wants to matter, to be seen as more than his skills or status, to be known deeply and Respected, not tolerated, not managed, not reshaped, respected. Admiration is the language that speaks to his soul. It tells him he's not invisible, that his values, efforts, and growth are worth something. And when someone reflects that truth back to him, it creates a mirror he starts believing in. That belief shapes how he shows up in the world, and especially in love. Because once he knows he's valued at his core, he'll fight to protect the connection that reminded him of that truth. A man doesn't grow through comfort alone. He grows through challenge, but not the kind that shames him or tries to mold him into someone else. The challenge that shifts him comes from being seen for who he already is and being expected to show up as that. He doesn't want to be fixed. He wants to be believed in. There's a massive difference. The first assumes something's broken. The second assumes something powerful is still unfolding. When someone sees that potential and treats it with respect, he listens. He leans in, not out. Growth happens not because he's pushed, but because he's pulled toward who he knows he can be. And the strongest impact isn't made by pressure. It's made by presence. A man rises when the space around him inspires excellence without demanding it. That doesn't mean there's no standard. It means the standard exists with clarity, not control. He doesn't respond well to manipulation or emotional micromanagement, but he responds powerfully to consistency and calm. When someone doesn't flinch at his struggle but still holds the line, he pays attention. That challenge reminds him that respect isn't given automatically. It's earned through action, and earning it matters to him, not because of pride, but because of purpose. And trying to change a man is the fastest way to make him resist. The need to prove himself gets replaced by the need to protect himself. He starts editing his truth, shrinking his voice, and defending his choices, even when he knows they're not his best. Change that's forced rarely sticks, but change that's invited through inspiration, that lasts. A challenge that isn't rooted in control creates an inner conversation. He starts asking himself, am I showing up the way I want to? Do my actions reflect who I say I am? And when those questions feel self-directed, not externally imposed, the answer leads to evolution. And men grow in environments that challenge their habits, not their identity. No one wants to feel like their core is under attack. But their patterns, their decisions, those can be questioned if it's done with honesty and intention. If someone reflects back the gap between who he says he wants to be and how he's currently showing up, without judgment, just clarity, he can't ignore that. It sticks in his mind, not like an insult, but like a mirror. And good mirrors don't lie, they don't distort, they don't flatter, they show what's real. And that's exactly what drives real change. And respect is the currency of influence. If a man doesn't feel respected, he'll resist feedback, even if it's accurate. But when he knows he's being challenged from a place of belief, not criticism, he stays open. It takes strength to hold someone accountable without controlling them, to say you're capable of more, and I see it. That message hits differently than you're not enough as you are. One lifts, the other crushes. When a man feels lifted, even while being called out, something shifts inside him. He doesn't get defensive. He gets motivated, not by force, but by possibility. And the people who bring out the best in him aren't always the easiest to be around, but they're often the most unforgettable. They reflect back his potential when he's forgotten it. They hold him to a standard when he's tempted to lower it, not because they want to control him, but because they know what he's capable of. That challenge makes him uncomfortable. And that's the point. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens when someone won't let him settle for half of what he can be. That kind of presence is rare, and when he finds it, he doesn't forget it. And a man thrives when there's space to grow, not pressure to comply. He doesn't want to be told what to do. He wants to be reminded of why he's doing it. Motivation dies when it comes from guilt, but it flourishes when it's rooted in values. If someone reflects those values back to him clearly, not by preaching but by living them, it acts like a compass. He remembers his own direction. He recalibrates. He doesn't feel pulled around by emotion or control tactics. He feels called back to center. And from that place, his choices carry more weight and more meaning. And there's power in not backing down, but also in not backing him into a corner. When someone stands firm in their own values without trying to dominate his, a new kind of dynamic forms. It's not based on superiority. It's based on mutual strength. Two people who can challenge each other without breaking each other. That tension, when healthy, becomes fuel. It makes conversations deeper, decisions more thoughtful, emotions more honest. He's not just reacting anymore. He's reflecting, not because he has to, but because now he wants to. Growth becomes personal, not imposed. And men don't attach emotionally to ease. They attach to energy, the kind that calls something out of them. That brings a sense of focus back into their world. Not chaos, not drama, but edge. That edge keeps things alive. It's the difference between being comfortable and being captivated. And captivation happens when someone refuses to water themselves down and refuses to let him do it either. That unspoken challenge becomes part of the connection. It says, "You're capable of more, and I'll remind you when you forget." That reminder over time builds respect, and respect builds emotional depth. And at his core, every man wants to become the best version of himself, even if he doesn't always show it. He wants to be better, to do more, to lead with clarity, to love with strength. But he can't do it in a space where he's being managed or molded. He needs to feel like he's choosing growth, not being forced into it. When someone challenges him without trying to erase him, something powerful awakens. His energy shifts, his decisions sharpen. He starts to rise, not to meet someone's demands, but to meet his own destiny. And that's when he becomes emotionally invested, when the connection makes him better without making him feel smaller. And a man may enjoy chemistry, but he builds commitment on stability. Sparks might catch his attention, but it's structure that earns his investment. When he looks toward the future, he's not just thinking about romance, he's thinking about rhythm. Can life feel calm next to this person? Can the daily grind feel lighter, not heavier? It's not about luxury or ease, it's about compatibility in the quiet moments. Can conflict be handled without chaos? Can communication happen without confusion? When the answer to those questions is yes, something shifts inside. He begins to imagine continuity, not just connection. And long-term vision needs more than emotional highs. It needs the ability to weather emotional lows. A man starts attaching deeply when he sees that the dynamic doesn't crumble under pressure, that respect doesn't vanish when things get tough, that disagreements don't spiral into disrespect. Emotional security becomes the glue. He realizes that the partnership is not built on constant agreement, but on shared resilience. That resilience allows him to feel at home, not just physically, but mentally. His nervous system calms, his energy regulates. And from that place, he starts building, not just dreaming. And the idea of building a life isn't abstract to him. It is deeply practical. It means emotional predictability, aligned values, and teamwork that doesn't require constant negotiation. He pays attention to how stress is handled, how decisions are made, how kindness is maintained, even when emotions run high. These things matter more to him than most people think. He may not say it out loud, but he's always assessing, can we handle life together? Not just the good moments, but the ones no one posts about. When the answer is yes, his heart follows. Because it's not just about love, it's about life. And consistency plays a major role in how a man envisions the future. He watches how moods shift over time. He observes how accountability is handled, not perfection, but reliability. When he sees that the dynamic is not built on emotional volatility, he begins to trust. And when he trusts, he commits. Slowly at first, cautiously, but with growing confidence. That's how emotional bonds form. Through hundreds of moments that whisper, you're safe here. That safety isn't soft. It's strong. It's earned through time, presence, and emotional honesty. And once it's earned, he protects it. And a man attaches more when he sees alignment in purpose. Shared direction matters. It's not about agreeing on every detail, but on the bigger picture. How is time valued? How is family viewed? What does success mean? These questions sit in the background as he listens, watches, and reflects. Because building a life means building towards something, not just existing beside someone. He doesn't want to build alone. He wants partnership, where strengths are balanced and roles are respected. And when he feels that kind of alignment, the bond moves from casual to committed. It deepens with intention, and peace becomes his most valued currency. It's not about boredom. It's about emotional balance. When life already brings enough battles, he doesn't want to. Oh, fight where he should feel restored. That peace isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about handling it with grace. When he sees that problems don't escalate into patterns of drama, he breathes easier. He starts showing up more, giving more, sharing more, not out of obligation, but out of clarity. Because now he knows this is someone he can move through life with, not just hang on to in the good times. That's what makes him emotionally anchored. And it's often in the small, everyday moments that he makes his biggest decisions. Watching how stress is handled after a long day, noticing how space is given when energy is low, observing how kindness is prioritized when it would be easier to react. These patterns matter. They paint a picture of the future. They answer questions he may not even know he's asking. Can I be human here? Can I grow here without guilt? Can I build here without resistance? If the answer is yes, he begins to make mental room for long-term plans, for commitment, for presence that lasts. And when he imagines life together, he's imagining a partnership, not perfection. Someone to build with, not someone to carry. He's not looking for ease. He's looking for alignment in effort. Will the energy match? Will the mindset evolve? Will the hard days still feel like our days? These are quiet but powerful thoughts. They shape how he engages, how deeply he opens up, and how much he's willing to give. Because once he sees that life together doesn't mean sacrifice of self, but a strengthening of self, the bond becomes non-negotiable. It becomes foundational. And trust isn't built in declarations. It's built in demonstration. Over time, in moments of tension and triumph alike, he watches. Not for flaws, but for patterns. How is responsibility owned? How is forgiveness handled? How is patience practiced? These are the things that show him whether building a future together is sustainable. He's not just investing emotion, he's investing belief. And belief only grows OWs where behavior supports it. When he sees those behaviors align, the emotional walls start dropping. And when those walls drop, so does the fear of fully showing up. And a man fully commits when he no longer sees the relationship as something that could derail his purpose, but as something that strengthens it. The future stops feeling like a compromise and starts feeling like a collaboration. It's not about losing himself. It's about becoming more of himself with someone beside him. That feeling is rare. It's powerful. And once it's there, he holds on to it with everything he has. Because now, it's not just about chemistry or challenge or admiration. It's about a shared life, a partnership he can build within, thrive inside, and trust completely.